The OP Cold War crossbow is broken, and here's the gameplay proof that nobody can dispute. Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Diaside, and in this video it's all about the crossbow. And yes, this thing is broken beyond all measures to the point that I'm actually astounded, baffled, and simply can't believe what I'm seeing. Because when I break these examples down that you're about to see in just a couple of seconds, piece by piece, step by step, you're gonna see the ludicrousness that's definitely gonna make enemy players a little bit salty. In total, I got about 5 examples that I want to show you. Each one's going to show a little bit something different and yet something a little bit the same, so that way we can cover topics like bullet magnetism, or in this case arrow magnetism, things like overall flinch, things such as range and how that's then going to affect both those two things that I just mentioned, and so on and so forth. If that piqued your interest, then stick around and go get that coffee or the Mountain Dew, whatever it is that you gotta do to get jacked, because this stuff is going to be mind-boggling beyond all measures. This is the only thing left to do, just to simply sit back, relax, eviscerate that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump right into the video. Before I show you the examples, the main thing that you gotta understand about the crossbow is that number 1, it's a projectile weapon, and that then means that you have to shoot where enemy players are going to be, not where they currently are. In other words, understand their trajectory, and thus you're going to understand the crossbow's trajectory very similarly. Now if you want to see a full-on tutorial about how to use this thing, that will link it up in the top right hand corner of your screen this very second, but you also have to know, and this is vital, that when you shoot the crossbow, the arrow actually goes up before it comes back down. It's not a linear projectile, and thus you have to take that into account when you're firing the weapon. Keep that in the back of your mind, and trust me, it's definitely going to come into play, especially when we see this first example. In this first example, we find ourselves from the back to spawn on hijacked, and I go to the right hand side of the boat, and sure enough I see a guy, he jumps, and yet somehow I still get him. Yes, I thought first, okay, maybe I got him just in the foot or something like that, but as I rewind this and play in slow motion, what you're then going to see is that I literally didn't even hit him at all. I'm like, what? Are my eyes seeing this straight? And so just that you can really see, I'm going to put it on pause for 2 screenshots here. The first one and the second one. The first one's going to be just before I fire the bolt, and the second one's going to be after I fire the bolt. And so as you can see, in both of these 2 frames, I literally didn't hit him. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. This shouldn't be possible, and it's so broken. But nonetheless, this is only the beginning of the proof that I'm about to show you as to how broken this thing actually is. And having said that, the main takeaway from this example is to understand that this bolt magnetism is just that, bolt magnetism at close range distances. But what about at far range distances? Well, this next example is going to show you exactly this, and show you how it's even more broken at longer ranges. I can't quite remember the name of the map, but I know I'm at the top of the escalator shooting towards the 18. And sure enough, I see a guy down there, and look what happens. I shoot thinking, nah, it's not going to hit him. This bolt still hits that player, and I'm like, no freaking way! This is not possible! I honestly thought that bolt wasn't even going to hit him, but I thought, ah, heck. I got nothing to lose, let's go ahead and see if this works, and it did, but it shouldn't, and you'll see why as we rewind this and play in slow motion multiple times. When I initially fired this bolt, the player is still on the outside of the 18 building, or rather the 18 room, and gradually as time goes on, this player goes onto the inside, and the bolt is still traveling to that player, but by the time that the bolt actually reaches the player is already inside the building of the 18 room, and the bolt still hits him. I know, you can't believe it, I can't believe it, nobody believes it, but alas it is what it is, and it's something that you really gotta take into account and remember that this is the bolt magnetism at longer ranges. That's the main takeaway from this, is that the bolt magnetism is just crazy, and this example proves that. But the next example that we're going to cover is something a little bit different, yet still intertwines with bolt magnetism, and rather it's going to be the flinch that you get when you're firing the weapon and someone's actually shooting at you. Be warned, this example is very quick, and so as I put it on play, I see a guy at the very back there by the cubby, I shoot him, I take a bunch of shots, and somehow I still manage to get the guy, even with him putting 3 bullets into me, and myself still getting a headshot. Yes, you heard me right, I said a headshot. And so as we rewind this and play in slow motion multiple times, really take into account exactly how this is being done. The recoil that I'm taking on my weapon as I'm aiming down sights is minute, and yet at the same time it's always going to the left and into the direction that you're already shooting the weapon. This then means that it's very easy to control, and really in reality, the recoil is almost non-existent. You can obviously see that I should have missed my shot right there, but I still happen to land that shot, and lo and behold, once you take into account the bolt magnetism, it still landed that critical headshot, and that just simply shouldn't be possible. But what can I say? It is what it is, and you're seeing the proof right there firsthand. Alright, Diaslayers, so far I've shown you 3 examples, and they've all been against individual players. But this next example is going to be against 3 separate players, and it's really going to combine a couple of these concepts that we talked about from before, but rather it's going to be about landing critical headshots. And in all honesty, there's 2 of these that definitely should not be landing these critical headshots, but they are. And the second one, well, maybe that's debatable, but let's go ahead and see the example. As I go over the escalators, I see a guy with a bubblegum room. I go ahead and I shoot him behind the actual garbage can or the little object, and it still gets a critical headshot. I move on, I reload, I see the next player, get that critical headshot, and then reload once again, and go to the very back of the food court, and yet somehow I magically get that whip on there, and I say cha-ching, give me that headshot as well. As I rewind this, I'm going to show you 2 separate instances. The first replay is going to be just that, slow motion. But then the second replay is going to be taking these 2 things on pause and put it for those first 2 frames, before the shot and after the shot, just like I did in that first example, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There is no way that in that first character that I shot, that the reticle of the crossbow was actually on his head, as you guys could clearly tell that it was still left of that, maybe by about 6 inches or so. The second player that I shot, this is the one that's debatable, at least maybe it was a headshot, maybe it wasn't. I actually think that I was shooting around the chest area, but hey, let me know your thoughts about that down in the comment section below. But as far as that third player goes, no way should I have gotten this headshot. It was so unbelievably lightning fast, and in reality, when you see this in that first frame and second frame, no, I actually shot into the space between the weapon and the head. And at this point in time, I'm like, wait, what? I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. And yet this is actually how the weapon just functions. The bolt magnetism is just absolutely astounding and crazy to the point that it's like you're watching Wanted with Angelina Jolie and you're freaking curving bullets, but in this case, you're curving arrows, man. If you can already tell, I'm pretty much speechless and baffled, but hey, we got this next example, and it's going to be that last little cherry on top to really say, no way, this thing is broken beyond all measures, and we're going to see this example right now. As I find myself going to the 18 room, I happen to do a 180, I spin it, take on all that flinch, and yet still somehow get him, reload, get the next guy via Hipfire in a little hallway, see one more guy to the bottom of the escalator, reload Hipfire, get him as well, then see one more player at the very top of the escalators, Hipfire, and still get him, even though that last one definitely did not hit, and we'll see all this one more time in slow motion in a replay. The very first player that I got in this example in the 18 room. This is what I was talking about from before, and that the flinch is broken, but I digress. As I go into the next 3 players, the hipfire mechanic on this crossbow is just really good, but the second player and the third player that I hipfired definitely weren't. As we go into that third player at the top of the escalator, I'm going to put it on pause when we get there, because you're going to see that this actual reticle was below on the escalator railing, and the bolt magnetism with the hipfire accuracy on this thing is just utterly astounding and mind-boggling in so many ways that I can't even begin to describe to you as to how amazing that actually is. We all remember playing those games when we were growing up on Sega as well as on Nintendo. We had those little cheat codes that we would use, going pushing up, R1, down, blah. That's exactly what this crossbow is in Cold War. It's a cheat code, man. And I'm telling you guys, this just simply shouldn't be allowed. But lo and behold, it's one of those things that I'm going to say is the definition of cheap. Alright. I want to know what you guys are thinking down in the comment section below, because after seeing all these examples, you gotta be saying to yourself, what the heck did I just see? My eyes are bleeding and they're crying with some salt water, because you know why? Enemy players are definitely a little bit salty. Because this thing is going to be doing just that, adding tons of seasoning so much to the point that you're going to have steam come out of your ears. Obviously, my standpoint is that this thing is definitely broken and OP in so many ways, but like I said from before, I want to get your perspective on this down in the comment section below, and know that whatever you guys say, you always know that I'm going to respect your opinions, and that is something that I can guarantee. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now, Diaslayers, and as always, GG TNT.